Okay, so this recording is for people that did not attend today's synchronous, that is live laboratory meetings of Psych 625. So basically, this recording is going to explain all of the things that I demonstrated to students today, but I'm going to go more quickly, so I'm not going to allow you to have time to, in class today, I would give instructions and give 15 minutes, allow the students to do it, and then they come back and then we continue on working. If you for this recording, just go ahead and if there's a spot like that, just press pause, and then you can go do what you need to do, and then you continue. Obviously, you can rewind if you need to rehear something that I said, or you need me to slow down, then just pause, and then you can rewind it. So this is for the link that I just sent via email to the laboratory sections. It's a SciToolkit link. You'll click on the link, and then there'll be an opening page. You'll click Start Survey. And then it should be the first thing you're asked, or one of the first things you're asked, is to enter your participant ID number. That's the ID number that I've emailed you earlier this week. Please make sure you enter that correctly, because that's how we're going to identify your data files later on, which is how you're going to receive credit for this laboratory. So make sure that you're entering the correct ID number, the one that you received in the email the other day. So once you have completed the task on that link, which is the Stroop task, takes about 10 to 15 minutes. Your data files will be created. There's two data files will be created for you, and they will be sent to a server, which only I have access to right now. And then I'm going to move them over to the Google Drive folder. The Google Drive folder that I'm referring to is shown here in the slides. This was in the lecture slides from yesterday, but this is also, I've also added this to a lab only set of slides, which is in the lab folder on Blackboard. So there's two different places where you can access these links. Once you're done with the experiment, your data should be moved by me, manually moved over to this Google Drive folder, and I'll click on it now. And here are all the files. When everything's done, we have 36 people in the class. Each student, when they finish the stuff on the link, should have two files which are created here. One of them is just a data file, which has your reaction times. The other one is called a survey file. The data, that is reaction time files, start with this prefix Sci625 Lab1, then there's a dot, and then there's a string of numbers and letters. The string of numbers and letters is important. SciTool creates a unique one of those for each participant who clicks on the link. So this is like a unique SciToolkit identifier code, a unique one for each participant who takes the experiment. So right here, this is a data file. This has someone's reaction times from the study in it. Moving down, right here, for instance, this S dot, and then there's a series of numbers and letters. This is the survey file. So the survey files start with S dot, whereas the data files start with Sci625 Lab1. And so everyone creates two files, a survey file with an S, and then a data file that starts with Sci625 Lab1. As people complete the SciToolkit experiment, those data files will be manually moved here. The first thing you want to do is you have to find your survey file. So you have to find the file that you have with an S on it. The way you're going to have to do that is you're going to have to guess and check. There's going to be around 36 survey files, and you just need to kind of manually go through. Here, I'll open up one. This is mine. I took the experiment a couple of days ago, and this is what the survey files look like. They're all going to be basically identical, except for right here. That A stands for answer. And when SciToolkit asked me when I took the experiment, type in your participant ID. I didn't give myself a participant ID, and I don't care if you guys see my data. So I just typed in Dr. Rosenthal. For you guys, though, this is just going to be a number right there. Your unique participant ID number, 625 participant ID number, is going to appear here. And so you need to sift through all of the survey files until you find the one that contains your 625 participant ID number. Then what you need to do is you need to look at the name of that survey file. And here's the name of the survey file. This one is S.178B367, etc. And this is important because the way you're going to identify your data file, the one that has the reaction times, is by finding the data file which has this code, this SciToolkit identifier code on it. So go back to here's my survey file. So I need to remember 178B3. And then I need to find the data file which has that on it. So here's data files, and then I happen to know because I've already found it. Here is mine right here, Sci625 Lab1 dot, and then that's where the SciToolkit identifier code begins. 178B367. That looks like mine right there. We'll just double check. 178B3. Yep, 178B3. So this is my data right here. And so you need to download both of yours. You need to download onto your computer your survey file, and you also need to download onto your computer your data file. So download both of the files that are yours. Once you have those, you are going to import, and I'm going to show you how to do that. You are going to import your data file into Excel. And so I will do that right now. I'll open up a fresh Excel. And then for people with Macs, the way you import a text file is File, Import, Text File, and press Import. Then you have to find the text file. Mine's on my desktop. That's it right there, I think. Yeah, 178B3. Then click Get Data. Delimited is correct. Click Next. Here you have to do an important thing though. Unclick Tab, and then you want space to be checked instead. You want space to be clicked, not Tab. Then click Next. And then here you just press Finish. And then A1 is fine. It's just going to basically paste it into A1. And there you go. So I just imported my reaction time data for the Stroop task to right here. And what's really important is that each individual word is in its own cell. So the word practice is in A1. The word blue is in B1. The word green is in C1. These numbers are each in their own cell. That's important. We want to be able to isolate each of those words. So the next thing you need to do, assuming that you've correctly imported your Stroop data file, is you want to copy and paste your survey file. So I'm going to go back to my desktop. And then my survey file is right there. And I'm going to highlight everything. And then copy it. For me, that's Command C. It might be different if you're on PC. Just minimize it and then go back to my notebook. That's not right here. And then somewhere off to the side over here, I press Command V, you'll just press paste. And what's really important about this is that now your data file and your survey file are on the same place. And it's really important that I can see that the grader, whether that be me or my assistant, will be able to see your 625 participant ID right here. As I said, I don't have a participant ID, so I just typed in my name right there. You might even want to make it yellow so it's very easy for us to see. And this is important. And so once you have all this stuff on your Excel file, what we need to do is compile the data into the condition. So in the Stroop task, there are two conditions. There is the congruent condition and there is the incongruent condition. The congruent, this D column is important. The zeros are incongruent condition and the 1 is congruent condition. So what do these terms congruent and incongruent mean? 0, as I just said, is incongruent. And if you notice, the 0 is right next to these two colors, green and red. The incongruent condition is when, in the task, your job is to say what the color of the ink is and ignore what the letters say. The incongruent condition is when the color of the ink is different from what the letters spell out. So for instance, here, this would be like the ink is green, but the word spells red. And that's the incongruent condition because the two colors are different. The color of the letters is different from what the letters say. Comparing that to right here where there's a 1, that's the congruent condition. And there you can see that the two colors are green. So this is green ink that spells out the word green. So that's the congruent condition. What we want to know in this truth task is if your reaction times for these two conditions are different. And so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to separate your reaction times for these two conditions using if-then statements in Excel. So the way we do that, we start where it says trials 1. The warm-up is just warm-up. That's where the participant's getting used to the task. We're just going to exclude those data, and we're just going to start where it says trials 1 right here. That's like basically the first trial that we care about. And you type in a cell right next to the reaction time or somewhere on the same row equals if, open parenthesis, and then you click in cell D33. You click where the column that has those 0s and 1s, you click there, and then you notice how D33 appeared there. And you say, if D33 equals 0, which is the incongruent condition, you put a comma, then what we want Excel to do is we want it to type out or to paste the reaction time for that trial. Then I'm going to press enter. And it did that. This number was 0. Therefore, it copied and pasted the reaction time for that trial right there. I want to go ahead and use that same formula for all of the trials. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your mouse, hover it above the bottom right corner until it changes like that. For me, it turns from a white cross into a black cross. That's how I know I'm in the right place. Then I click on my mouse, hold it, and I drag all the way to the bottom until it lines up perfectly. And then I release. And then that formula has been applied to all of those cells below, just making sure it works. Right here, there's a 1. That does not equal 0. Therefore, the formula outputs a false. Here, though, the column D contains a 0. And so Excel typed out the number 679, which was my reaction time for that trial. So these are all these numbers that you see in here. Those are my reaction times for the incongruent trials. We're going to do the same thing now for the congruent trials. Equals if, and you're going to click on that exact same cell again, D33. If that cell equals, but now instead of typing 0, now we're going to type 1. If that cell equals 1, comma, then we're going to click on this again, the reaction time. If this equals 1, then we want Excel to copy and paste this number. Please note that for this particular row, row 33, it does not equal 1. So when I press enter here, I'm expecting it to say false, which it does, which is good. So once again, I'm going to apply this formula to all the rows beneath it. So you hover your mouse above the bottom right corner until it turns black, click down or click, and then you drag all the way down. And then release. And then now you have the reaction times for all of the congruent trials. So a couple things I want to do is just count to make sure that we have the amount of trials that size toolkit was supposed to present. So I'm going to count equals count, and then I'm going to highlight all of these things right here. And basically what that's doing is it's counting the amount of cells that have numbers in it and ignoring all the ones that say false. And it says 60, which is good because that's how many it's supposed to have. And then I'm going to I'm going to move that formula. Actually, I'll just show you again. Equals equals count, rather, and then highlight all this stuff above it. And that equals 20, which is good. That's exactly what I told SciTools, how I programmed the study to give 60 incongruent trials and 20 congruent trials. Now I'm going to calculate the means of each of our two conditions. Equals average. Then I highlight all of things in this column, everything in the incongruent. So it'll ignore the falses and will only calculate the average based on the actual numbers. Press enter. And that was my average for the incongruent condition. Now we'll do the same for the congruent condition. Equals average, to write out the whole word and open parenthesis, then highlight everything, line it up, press enter, and there is my average for the congruent condition. So now I have the two means I have the means for my two conditions of this study. I am going to copy them. And then I'm going to go to the Google Sheet, this Google Sheet right here. These are the data from a class that already went this morning. I don't have a participant number. Let's erase that. So these are your participant numbers. I don't have one, so I'll just paste my data right below it. So paste. And then my data appears right here. My means appear right here. So that's what everyone needs to do. You'll need to import your data files into Excel, copy and paste your survey file into Excel, use if-then statements to separate the reaction times for the congruent and incongruent trials. And then you need to calculate your averages for the incongruent and congruent trials, like I did. Copy and paste them into this Google Sheet right here on the correct number that corresponds to your 625 participant ID number. After my class goes this afternoon, they'll be starting here in about 30 minutes. This will get filled up, and then most of the class or all of the class, their data points will be in here, and then those will be the data that we analyze for this project. What's going to happen is after my afternoon lab class is finished collecting data and all of their data are here in this Google Sheet, I am going to record another video where I will show you how to analyze all of these data right here in SPSS. To give you a little foreshadowing here, I'm going to basically copy all of the means here out of the Google Sheet, paste them into SPSS, and then I will perform the correct statistical analysis in SPSS. I will record it and then post it on Blackboard. So there'll be two links for today's lab, this video right here, and then there'll be another video, and the next video will be about how to analyze these means in SPSS. The thing that you're going to be turning in, this is due Monday at 11 p.m. If you're working by yourself, then you'll just be doing this all by yourself. You'll have, instead of working with groups. So you'll turn in a single Excel file, and each tab will contain one tab, if you're turning in by yourself, will contain your data file and the survey file. That's what I just showed you. One tab in your Excel file is going to contain that with all of the work that I just showed you, where you use the if-then statements, you calculate the averages. Then another tab is going to need to contain a screenshot of the output from the SPSS analysis. So if you're doing this by yourself, you'll have one tab which contains your data and survey file. Then you'll have a second tab in Excel, which is going to contain a screenshot of the SPSS analysis, the output from the SPSS analysis. And then you'll turn it in on Blackboard. It's available under the labs folder on Blackboard. You just turn it in like any other assignment you would on Blackboard. So I think that's it. This stuff right here these slideshow is available it should be available in the labs folder, the lab folder on Blackboard. If there are any questions or comments, please let me know. This Lab 1 Part 1 is due Monday, and then we will be working with this lab in class on the next meeting as well. Let me know if there are any questions. Feel free to email me.